Good evening. Hello, hello. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. It's such an honor and a privilege to be able to share the Word of God. And as Pastor Tia shared, there's two things just in this season, this time of my life, that I'm very passionate about. And so I'm going to minister from my passion, what I care a whole lot about. And it was funny because we talked about it on Saturday. And Saturday night I couldn't sleep because I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go down this way, this path. I'm going to do this. But what do you want to say? So all night I'm thinking about what to say, how to say it, what to do, how to present it. And I thought it was just amazing. And I got confirmation Sunday morning. Last week, Pastor Tabitha, Minister Tabitha, Deaconess Tabitha, spoke about 2/3 of what I'm going to speak about in more depth. And Sunday, Valerie actually talked about what I'm going to talk about without really naming it and putting all the titles to it. So this evening, we're going to talk about, the theme is regain. And so what I want to speak upon is prosperity of the soul. You getting there? Okay. So in the meantime, it's based off of two scriptures. The first one is Psalms 23:3, and it says in the King James Version, "He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake." And the title came from 3 John 1:2. And it says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers." So what does all of this mean, and what am I going to really speak about today? We're going to talk about the soul. It was my understanding, just growing up in church, that the soul is the seat of your emotions, your mind, and your intellect. And when I did further study, it lined up still. In the Old Testament, the word for soul is nathos, and in the New Testament, it's suke. Both of these words speak to the soul, and three different definitions. The first one being it is the seat of feelings, desires, affections, aversions. The second being it is the part of us that is designated for eternal life or everlasting life. And it also refers to just people in period, in general. So there were 8 souls on the ark. So we're going to focus on the first part of it, and the first definition, which speaks to your emotions. Because again, for those who don't know, I am a mental health professional, seeking my licensure soon. And so I'm very concerned about people being well, not just physically, but your emotion, because that typically is something that is neglected. So all of us being well in every part of us. As I was studying, I learned that the Greek version of this word is where we get the word psyche from. So you know the word psyche, which means your mind, your soul, your spirit, your inner self, your subconscious, your intellect, your mind. The main passage, 3 John 1:2, is this is the letter that John was writing to a friend, and his desire is what I desire for all of us. When he says, "I want you to prosper means to have a good journey, to be well on your way, to make good. It means to thrive. It means to grow, to flourish, to be healthy, to be strong." So in essence, he was saying to him, and he had understanding that when you are in a good place in your emotions and in your minds and in your thoughts, that your health follows. And I love how, even though the Bible was written centuries upon centuries ago, a lot of things that were biblical principles are now being proven by science. One of the things that, again, like I said, I'm very passionate about mental health and just taking care of ourselves. And there was a study done about 30 years ago by Kaiser Permanente. and it's called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Studies, ACEs. And what that did was the researchers out in California, they realized that a lot of times when the people were coming in for stroke, diabetes, hypertension, a lot of physical ailments, when they actually sat down and had a conversation with them about what they've been through a lot. So there is a direct correlation between our emotional health and our mental health as well. And they found that, the outcome of that study was like a screening. It's 10 questions, and it talks about different things, such as when you were younger, and this is all for when you were a child. So when you were a child, did you see your mother, stepmother, or mother figure get abused? Did you experience not having enough to eat? Did you feel as though people didn't like you? Did you have always enough to eat? So it's 10 things. And what they found is that for people who have 3 or more, it increases their likelihood of having hypertension, their likelihood of using drugs and smoking cigarettes. And the higher your number, the more bleak your future could be. And not to say that just because you have a score of 10 or 5 or above that you're just doomed, because they also found that there are certain factors that if it's also present while your home life is in turmoil, that if you have these protective factors, these mitigating factors, such as at least one caring adult, having outlets and having just a safe place, that helps offset. Because they've had people who have said, well, my ACE score is 6. I've experienced these things, but I'm okay. And if you talk to the person, there was that one basketball coach, that one teacher who took that time with them. So they help offset some of that things. So my desire for us is the same as John when he wrote this letter, that we will be well, that we will regain. And if we've never had that peace, that we will actually gain prosperity in our souls, that we will thrive in our emotions, that we will do well in our emotional and mental health. I have visuals. That's what I'm looking. Okay. So the first visual I have you heard of the phrase tip of the iceberg? Okay. So I've heard it, but as I'm going to share, I'm a visual person, so I understand things when I see them. And it wasn't until I saw a picture of an iceberg did things just really make sense. Like, oh my gosh, there's so much. So when you see the picture, the tip of the iceberg is huge. It's massive, but the greater part is underneath. And this is actually something that I use with the people that I work with to help them understand that, and a lot of different, I use this in a few different areas, but for the sake of today, we're going to talk about the way to regain your emotional health. How do you prosper? And what I want to share with you is cognitive behavioral therapy, which, like I said, Valerie just shared it, but didn't give it the titles. So cognitive behavioral therapy is an approach to counseling which involves changing behavior based off of feelings and your thoughts. So if you can change how you feel about something, change how you think about something, your behavior will be different. The tip of the iceberg will be the behavior. We can see someone if they're feeling depressed. We can see on how they present. They can be sleeping a lot. They can be withdrawn and not have a lot of energy. We can see that. However, these things, the thing that I love about this is that it works well with my Christian beliefs, as you will see, because we're going to actually go further into the scripture regarding this. And it works. It works well. It is considered an evidence-based practice because it's been tested and shown to be effective. So if people are struggling with anxiety, depression, substance abuse, things like that. It helps to offset some of that. Okay, so if you can imagine the iceberg, the top of the iceberg is the behavior. So underneath, the massive part, what's feeding those behaviors is your thoughts and your emotions. So to get those things under control, then we can do that. So one of the first images that I had was on the way here, everyone took a bus or took their car. And if something is going on, how do we know? And this is, we can talk back. It's interactive. There's actually going to be a quiz, so you may want to listen. So if there is something wrong with your car, how do we normally know?
Engine light, maybe?
Engine light. So if the check engine light is on, we know that something's wrong with the engine. If your tire pressure is low, then that light is going to light up. And the same thing is with our emotions. They are indicators. So if you can think of them as lights on the dashboard, and they're indicating that something is wrong, something is amiss. So I would just encourage you to be curious. Okay, so if you're feeling jealous, being curious about that feeling. Okay, so where is this coming from? What is this? Because also in my work, I have people who shut down their emotions because it's too painful, it's too hard, it's too challenging to try to figure out. So they're like, I'm not going there at all. Or I have some of them who want to. I had one little girl who was a Christian, and we were talking about emotions, and she said the God doesn't have emotions. You know, she was saying anger is bad and things like that, and it's like, okay, God gave us everything. He gave us everything that we need. And even our emotions serve a purpose. They are indicators, like the car dashboard. They're letting us know, okay, I need some attention here. I need some attention there. When we don't understand something, it tends to get abused or neglected. And I think a lot of times, I don't know about y'all, because actually some of the things that we're going to do today is because of my experience and wanting to impact the lives of the people that I work with. I wasn't necessarily taught my emotions. And one of the things I've begun to do with all the clients I work with is that we talk about feelings and being able to name them. I had one young man I was working with who I knew had some issues with his dad. And I gave him a pack of cards, and I was like, so look through this list and tell me what are some things that you feel. And he came up with 4. It was like, no, I know there's some more there. And his issue was he didn't know. He didn't have names for things. So we went through and we talked about, okay, what this mean. And when we were done, it was a nice list. And it's like, okay, now we know. God gave us all of our emotions. And I just love that he gives us this. In Ephesians 4:26, it says to be angry, but sin not. So he knows that there's going to be people in this world who will signal or not signal as they're trying to, turn in front of us. They know that people will get on our nerves, that's going to annoy us, who will say crazy stuff. He knows this, and he allows us to have that. He acknowledges it. But it's what we do with it that is either good or bad. I've often asked, the same young man asked, okay, so what are the bad emotions? And he had a whole list. And it's like, you know what? No, emotions are neutral. Just like the light on the dashboard. It's not bad. It didn't do nothing. It's just letting you know, hey, this needs some attention. This needs some work. Some things are off right here. So it's just a matter of using it to our benefit. I like to use the example of the civil rights movement. Where would civil rights have been if people didn't get angry, if they weren't mad at the injustices that they had to live with the second-class citizenship? Where would we be right now if people did not get angry and use that in a proactive, positive way? Where would we be? So what do you do with the feeling? So what do you do? So how do you deal with it? So I have a question. So Pastor Tia, she looks really thirsty. You want some? You want this? So would you open it? No? Why not? You don't want to wear it. Okay. So let's say she was dying of thirst and we needed to open this right now. What do? We open it and just have it all over everywhere? How do we open it and not have it spray everywhere? What do we do? Tap it? What? Tap it? Anything else? Any other? Ding, 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 ding. Yes. We're going to turn it slowly. And why is that? So it keeps us. So I like to bribe people. Oh, you have candy. No, just one. Just one. Okay, thank you. So this is what coping skills do. Because I also realize that we have these emotions and we don't know what to do with them. It's like, okay, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling angry, I'm frustrated, I feel sad. And people, we don't know what to do with it. So another thing I do with all of my kids, and if you can look at your packet, one of the first activities I do with them is this, where we actually sit down and we talk about, well, what can you do? What are some options? And what I've given you is an alphabetical listing of options. And we talk about how can you handle if you're having a bad day? What are some healthy outlets? Because we don't want to wear the upsetness and just spill it all over everyone. So in your packet of what you have, I've given everyone a large piece of poster board. Again, like I said, this is what I do. These are alphabets. So everyone has letters in their names. So if you can write your name, I have little pieces of letters, but you can use stencils or whatever. And for each letter of your name, identify something in this list that can help deal with you. And I just challenge you to go through your name, go through the list, try some things different to help you channel that in a proactive and appropriate way. So that's why you have that large piece of paper. And something I've realized, I have been doing this because, like I've shared before, my parents were amazing, they were amazing, and they gave me what they had to give. And we just kind of moseyed on. It wasn't a concrete conversation that we had regarding, okay, so you had a bad day at school, so let's do some things to help you process that. That wasn't a conversation in my house. I don't know about y'all's. Anybody? No? Okay. So we just out here with all these emotions that we don't know what to do with, and we have to live. So, like I said, for all lives who touch mine, they have these tools now. And something I realized, like I said, I've been doing this for a while, and I realized that when you do these things proactively, so you can do them in reaction, okay, I'm having a bad day. One of my favorite coping skills is laughter. I will listen to Pandora. There was a time when I would take my breaks at work and just walk. And if you look at me, you'll think I was crazy because I'm just sitting there laughing because I'm listening to Pandora comedy. And when you're doing things proactively, it keeps the bubbles from building up. So once you build up, yes, it's a great place to let them out easily. But I would encourage you to do these things proactively. And have a diversity, change up what you do and how you do. Okay, so the next part, so we have behavior. So we want to change behavior. We can see behaviors. We know what that looks like. We have feelings. They're messengers. God gave us them. They're amazing. They're wonderful. We just need to know what to do with them. And if we have in some situations that are overwhelming, we have now some skills to do that. So the next part, and the visual for this one was really cute. It was a thought bubble behind bars, because again, like I said, the thing that I like about this particular approach is that it's so compatible with my beliefs as a Christian. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says that we are to take every thought captive, that we are to cast down imaginations and every high thing that will exalt itself against the knowledge of God, and will bring into captivity every thought into obedience. So often we think that because we have this thought that it's just there's nothing that we can do about it. But we do have influence. We do have power over what stays. What comes through, we can't necessarily control. But what we stay on, what we linger on, what we give attention to, that is all in our control. Probably about, maybe, I haven't seen him in forever, but maybe about 10 years ago. Anybody ever seen The Nanny? It was a show where the woman came in and helped parents with their very challenging children. It was very interesting to see some parents as they were trying to do timeouts with their toddlers. And so they're not used to it. So they like, okay, whatever, I ain't getting up, I ain't listening to mommy, whatever. So if timeout was here, and they had to stay for 5 minutes, they would get up and what I remember seeing the person do, Joe, was every time they got up, they brought them back. Every time they got up, they brought them back. And we have to, I would encourage you, I'm not telling you what to do. It would be a good idea to begin to take your thoughts captive, because the word does say for us to do it, and it will help us gain prosperity in our soul, to have our emotions, our mental life thriving. Also in your packet, we'll go to the next one, which is, I want this one, this shoots, the cognitive distortion. So we all have ways of thinking that are not necessarily healthy. And so we have some, and we're going to go through them all. I'll explain them, and we'll talk about them a little bit. So we have these ways of looking at life, thinking, ways of having our thoughts be that, like I said, are not so great. The first one is a mental filter. So if you notice, they have the sunglasses on. So everything is colored. Everything is not as it is. So they're only, typically will only look at things that are negative. They're only going to focus on the good, the bad things. So this is the type of person who, when you give them a compliment, they don't know how to respond. Instead of just saying thank you, you'll say, oh, your hair is really nice. Well, my cat died last night. Okay, your hair still looks nice, So they have a hard time acknowledging the good things that happens. They'll focus on the bad things, the parts of their day that wasn't so great. Judgments. Okay, so this is making evaluations about events, others, the world, rather than describing actual events. So I kind of apologize in a little bit because if I offend anyone, I don't think I will, but this is a disaster, this is horrible. Those kind of things, those statements is an unhealthy thinking pattern. I don't know if I didn't do a very good impression, but if you've heard in the news some of the language used, instead of describing what is happening, what is actually going on, they just make a judgment. Oh, it's no good. Things like that. So mind reading, assuming that you know what others are thinking. And this is typically negative things about ourselves. So someone in church walk past you and they don't speak. Oh, they just don't like me, whatever. They got issues with me. Could be that I know for me, I'm focused. If I could walk past you and not see you. But the person who is this unhealthy habit, that's the thought that would be in their head. Emotional reasoning, saying, okay, so I feel bad, so I am bad. Keep going. So there are indicator lights. Thank you. Keep going. The iceberg. So as you see, the greater part is at the bottom. The next one. Thoughts. So this is where we are now. So you have the thought bubble. So we're learning how to rein them in and have boundaries around them. So emotional reason. So I did something stupid, so I am stupid. Prediction. You know what's going to happen. Okay, well, if I try, then I'm going to look stupid and everyone's going to clown me. Mountain out of molehills. So you're looking at things and it's like you're making a small thing. Okay, so my boss did my evaluation and there's one critique that was given and it's like, oh my God, I'm a horrible employee. I'm about to get fired. It was just one little critique. Compare and despair. So this is when you're comparing yourself to someone else. Oh, well, I don't have, this style sense of someone else. And you're like, okay, well, I don't have this like that couple, or, I don't have the house and the picket fence and things like that, and you feel bad because you're looking at other people. Catastrophizing is the next one, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. Bad things are going to happen to me. If I start this business, it's going to fail. I'm going to be in debt, bankrupt, and eating M&Ms underneath the bridge. I don't know. So critical self is when you are thinking critically of yourself. Oh, I'm dumb. I'm stupid. I am fat. I'm ugly. I'm this. I'm that. So you're being critical. Black or white. Things are either one way or the other. If you had a rough morning, the whole day is trash, and there's no in between. Shoulds or musts. This is one of my favorite. Shoulding on yourself. So it's yes. That's exactly how it's supposed to sound. I'm in the house of the Lord, so I did. Yeah, shoulding on yourself. So when you're shoulding on yourself is when you are saying, I should do this, I should do that, I must do this. And I'm not even going to say another way of saying that in the house. But I must be married by the time I'm 35. And what happens is most of these will lead to sadness, depression, resentment, bitterness, everything that John in his letter was trying to convey. He wanted prosperity, and these are things that rob us of that prosperity. So when you're shooting on yourself, I must, I should, I do this, the feeling is typically you're feeling bad because you're not meeting up. As a Christian, a good Christian wife, I should do this, I should do that. As a husband, I should, all over, everywhere. So if you're doing it for yourself, you're feeling bad about yourself. And if you're doing it to others, it's typically you're being judgmental. And memories is when something happens and it brings you back to a place that the issue has passed, you're no longer there, but it feels like you're still there. Okay? So everybody got that, right? Y'all ready for a quiz? So like I said, this is, and I love it because it is related to the word. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a situation experienced in the Bible, and let me know if you can think of which one of these it fits into. All right? So Eve in the garden, and she says, when she's talking to having this conversation with the serpent, and she's like, God said, I can't eat the fruit, and I can't even touch it, because if I touch it, I'm going to die. So which one do you think that? Huh? Tell me why. Huh?
Because he said don't eat, and she said I can't eat or touch, and so she's making it larger than what he said.
Okay, so I love that you said that. So there was another one I was looking about where you're making it bigger than what it is. Huh? Yes, that's it. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so in 1 Samuel 16:10, it gives the story of the anointing of David as king. And Jesse's bringing all of his sons to the prophet, because the prophet says one of your sons is going to be king. And he forget. Yeah, who said that? Miss Renee. Thank you. This is my friend who came. Thank you so much. She's working on a campaign. Yes. Okay, so yes.
What was the scripture again?
1 Samuel 16, 10 through 11. Okay. So Numbers 13 and 33. This is the story of Israel when they are about to take this land, and they're saying that these Amalekites, I believe they were, that we are as grasshoppers in their eyes. So we must, if we're looking at ourselves and we think that we're grasshoppers, they must think.
Mind reading?
Yes, mind reading, and kind of projecting as well. So they're projecting their insecurities, because as we read later on, they were actually more afraid. Yep. Okay, so we have not done Mark 16 and 7. And this is when Jesus is calling for his disciples. And he says, have my disciples come, and Peter. So Peter was in this place where he had counted himself out, where he was like, I'm no longer worthy. So Jesus had to make a special appeal. Critical self. Okay, critical self. That's a. Why you say that one? Okay, so what happened? Okay, so why? So you can get one too, because you did say it. Okay, so yes, critical self. So he counted himself out. So Jesus was calling for his disciples, and he didn't count himself as one anymore. So yes.
Also be critical self.
Yeah, they're both. Yeah. Did I give you candy? Okay. Yes. So, and some of these overlap. Okay. So 1 Kings 19, 1 through 3. This is when Elijah was running from, I'm having a brain fart. What's her name? Jezebel. When he's running from her, and he is convinced that as soon as they catch up, she did threaten him. She did say, I'm gonna. Yeah, there was legitimacy, but he kind of took it to another place. So he is afraid, and he's thinking that, once she get a hold of me, it's gonna be all over. It's gonna be a wrap. Yeah. Yes, catastrophizing. Okay, was that what you're gonna say? Okay, tell me why.
Because you're believing something is like a bigger thing.
Well, that is mountain out of a molehill. So black or white is more like it's either this or that. And there's almost like 100 shades of gray in between black and white. So you're not accounting for that. But if you can pass it back, yeah. So those that is a tool. And I believe I did them all. So we all passed the test. Yay. Good job. Okay. So now what? So what do we do? So what do we do? I've given you some tools. I've given you, I've raised your awareness. So now what? If you'll look at the other paper I gave you, the only one that we haven't done, the alternative thoughts, yes, that's it. So what you would do is first of all, recognize that you're in this unhealthy thinking pattern, and everyone have them. Everyone have them, myself included. I refuse to do something or ask something of someone else that I cannot or will not do myself. So I would say, honestly, being a counselor has been very therapeutic to me, because like I said, I can't in good conscience tell and give these tools to other people and not use them for myself. I just can't. So it has helped me, especially with shooting on myself. I don't do that anymore. I'm a big girl. No more shooting on myself. So the balancing thought. So that's what we want to aim for. So when you realize that, okay, I am shooting on myself, I'm saying that I should be married with kids and have a house and a dog by now. Everyone who know me, I don't have those things. I really want a dog, though. I do. I ain't got those two, but I really want a dog. I'm just saying. So if I find myself, I should. So if I'm thinking and feeling I should be married, I should have a dog, I should have a husband, I should have a house by now. What feeling would that produce? Failure, guilt, shame, resentment, bitterness. What may be some behaviors? Isolation, depression, which looks like what? In addition to isolation.
In addition to isolation, it would look like skipping self-care.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
or you said isolation already, or maybe self-sabotage.
Okay. So you're doing things knowing that I'm going to get rejected just to do that self-fulfilling prophecy thing. Okay. So what's a more balanced? Say again. Yes, love that. Pretty cool. Yes. Yes. So the goal is, okay, so if I realize I'm shooting on myself, I can shift it. So instead of saying I should have these things, I should do this, you're saying, I would like to have a dog. I know the kind of dog I would like. I really want a dog. So if my thought is I really want a dog, I really want a house, I really want a husband, all that good stuff, what would my feeling be? Is goal based? What's the feeling though? Oh, probably should hopeful.
Expectation.
Expectant. Yes. Right. What would my behavior be? Behavior. So that would be where the goal directed behavior. So I am getting a house so I can have a dog, so I don't have to pay a whole bunch of money to have it in an apartment. So those are some goal based, and it's going forward. So balancing thoughts. So what you have before you is a sheet that for each one of these, it tells you how you can shift. So if you find yourself catastrophizing, you're thinking, okay, if I don't get this contract, that's going to be the end of my business and we're just going to be doomed. You can stop and say, okay, so what's the more balanced thought to, if I don't get this contract, everything is going to go to Hades? What's the balanced thought? Okay, so thinking positively. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Just move on. So if I'm feeling more optimistic, so what feeling would that produce? Oh, good job. Y'all are so getting this. And what would the behavior be? You're upbeat, you're confident, and when you go into the meeting to negotiate that.
Can I say something?
Yes.
In regards to that, or so like, and I think I'm in the same line. So I want to do this. I'm confident that I can do this, and then try. But even if it didn't work, now I realize that was not my my, what's the word, no, her, whatever.
That wasn't for me, so.
It wasn't that, so like,
Mhm.
just not, because I don't like to put myself out there, but there was an example. So
Yeah.
last Sunday, this old lady came in, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I wish I would have been there. So she was always, in her mind saying that, there's no way she could do that, because that's not who she was. So the mentality was,
Yeah.
I should, you know, and even on that day, she
Yeah.
said, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
Because this is not who I am. This
Yeah.
is just not, what if it doesn't work out?
Yes.
But she came to the realization and said, I have no choice. There's already an order of service. I
Yeah.
have to come and I have
Yeah.
to do it. And I got to give it the best I have. And if it didn't work out, this is
Yeah.
what she said in this in this office.
Yeah.
If it didn't work out, then she already knew
Yeah.
that, okay, well, this is just not my
Yes.
cup of tea. Okay, I'm
But-
going to move forward and do something else.
And I'm
she did it, you know?
s-
And, you know,
Yes.
per the,
Yes.
so, you know, that's,
Yes, and you know what, you're kind of going into the next part of this is, because it sounds like either someone helped her out and talked to her, or she talked to herself. My question.
for some reason, she actually had a conversation with the bald-headed guy. They don't know each other.
Yeah.
But that's who was talking.
Yeah. Okay. No. That was great. So that goes a very good segue into the next part, is when you have this mindset, you have this mentality, you have this fear, you have this challenge. How do you get over that? I have a question. So who in a time span of a day, who do you talk to the most? Okay, y'all so smart. Yes, yourself, because most people be like, my best friend, yes, yourself. And the word tells us in Romans 10:17 that faith come by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So if we have situations where, because this, and I'll just say it now. So what I'm sharing with you is just a tool, just one little plier, hammer, and a whole tool set. So this is just one tool. So what we're doing today, what I'm sharing today, cannot constitute as counseling. You can't say I had a counseling session. You can't say that. I'm just giving you a tool. But this is something that can raise your awareness, and we'll talk in a minute about if you are using some of these tools and it's still a challenge for you. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But my point is, this is just one little tool in a whole set of tools. And something else that's realized in this is that sometimes we have core beliefs, we have thoughts about ourselves that are not conducive, they're not in agreement with the Word of God. I did a Sunday school lesson a long time ago where we did an activity where we had a blank sheet of paper, and I had everyone write what was said to them. Because this is pretty much how we come into the world. We come in as a blank sheet of paper, and people write on us. And sometimes what people write isn't what God will write. It's not what are not healthy things. You know, I can't tell you how many times I hear children say, my parent told me I ain't going to be nothing. I'm not going to make it. I'm going to be a teenager mom. You know, I ain't nothing, so you ain't going to be nothing. So we have these things that are written on us. And one of the ways in that particular Sunday school lesson, we wrote it, and then I gave everyone red markers or pens to write through it, representing the blood of Christ, because we are now washed clean. Our slate are who people have wrote on us who didn't know us, didn't know the intention and the purpose that God had for us. We're a clean slate. However, some of those thoughts and those emotions are hard for us to dislodge. It's hard for us to let go. And the way that we can do that is through affirmations. When I first started this, and I remember I had a supervisor when I was doing my internship, and she talked about affirmations. I was like, I ain't doing that. I don't agree with my spirit. It just wouldn't. It was just too weird. I thought it wasn't conducive to my beliefs and my culture as a Christian. But as I began to grow as a person, I began to realize that we have to, as the word says, encourage ourselves. We have to because we're the people who talk to ourselves the most. We have to change our mindsets, and the way that happens is through affirmations, through speaking the word over ourselves. Deuteronomy 28 is a great affirmation to speak over ourselves, that I'm the head and not the tail, that I'm the beginning and I'm the head and not, I'm the first and not the last. I'm blessed coming in, I'm blessed coming out. Those are great things to declare over ourselves. And we can do that because as we are speaking and as we are sharing and declaring, we're also hearing. So our faith is increasing. And as the old lady said, I don't think that I would even be here if it wasn't for me even affirming myself and saying, you know what, I have endless courage. I am courageous. And these are things that I've done. I went to a workshop for books earlier part of this year, and the man gave a great challenge. He was a millionaire, but he was also a Christian, which I absolutely loved. And he was talking about this very thing as far as having these mindsets and these beliefs that need to be jarred up. And he was saying that to pretty much write your affirmations, the things that you want, the things that you aspire to be, write them on a piece of paper every day for 90 days. And if you miss a day, you got to start all over from day one. I've been trying to do that since the beginning of this year, and I've yet to get through all 90, but I refuse to give up. And I would say because of the work that I have done, I'm able to stand here, because I may have been too afraid, too intimidated, to whatever to do this. But because I began to speak to myself and affirm things. Things you want, things you aspire to be, whatever it is that you want to affirm, whatever you need to hear. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Mm-hmm.
But when doing affirmations, you also have to be mindful of the words that you use. A few minutes ago, you used I want it. No, it's not I want it. It is I am.
Yes. So speaking in the present tense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am the greatest thing that you have ever seen. I mean, don't take that for I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I have that house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have my ticket.
Thank you.
I have my bike.
Yes, thank you.
I have that Cadillac Range
Yeah.
Rover. I haven't made a choice yet of what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you decide what it is you want, and then you like she said, write it down, and you do your affirmations. And it's all about the wording, being mindful of the wording.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. Present tense. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So we're going to balance our thoughts, change our mindsets. And another part that helps is having a Nathan. When David was caught up in his foolishness, he couldn't see his foolishness, but he had a Nathan who came and he spoke truth. I taught this particular passage to the kids that I work with back up north, and it says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of the enemy are deceitful. So if you are truly my friend, you will be okay with running the risk of offending me, hurting my feelings, because the end result is you're going to be better. On Monday, me and Taki were out canvassing. And before we went, I put on sunscreen because we were out and everything. And because we're walking from door to door, I started sweating. We leave this man's house, and she was like, Nichole, your face. And pretty much I was sweating milk because the sunscreen and the sweat just made a mess. But I'm so grateful because I couldn't see it. We have blind spots. Our eyes are created to look out. So I can't see if I'm sweating milk, if I have spinach in between my teeth. I can't see that. So we need people in our lives who are going to be honest with us and tell us the truth, hurt our feelings, and then, help us wipe our tears and the milk sweat if need be. Okay, so as I shared earlier, and we're almost done, I shared earlier, I think in pictures, I think in images, and I was working with a young man I had a particularly rough session with him. I'm trying to be his paraclete. I want to come alongside him and help him out. And he's just like, no, I don't need help. I don't need help. I don't need help. And so as I was processing this with my supervisor, can you get the clip ready for me, please? When I was processing this with my supervisor, this particular clip came to mind. So if you can see, it's from Frozen. Okay, so if you haven't seen Frozen, right now she is struggling to get up this mountain because she needs to go see her sister who's up the mountain. So she's struggling. Finn knows he can rock climb and things like that. She doesn't know what she's doing, but she's determined to get up this mountain, and it's not working. And she's struggling, and she's like, okay, so, surely I'm there, right? And the camera pans out, and you see that she's only this far off the ground, okay? And then Olaf comes along, and he says, oh, there's a path right here. This is how I felt, that this kid was trying to go up this mountain, scratching and clawing, trying to figure this thing out on his own. And there's another way over there. So we saw a little bit of the clip and her struggle. So my question to you is, is there any of Anna in you, in us, in me, where you're struggling, trying to do some things on your own, and there are people who are trained, who are licensed, who do this day in and day out, who can help you get to your mountain? Either way, it's still going to be work, whether you got to climb the stairs or if you're going to try to struggle up the mountain. There's still going to be work involved, but I would just hope that, just a side note, one thing I do love about our church, and especially our leaders, is that they support mental health and they support counseling. They are very open about their struggles and how counseling has benefited them. So I love that part of the stigma isn't even existent here in this house. So I appreciate that. And I would just encourage people, if you are struggling, that there's a different way, that there's a way to get the things that we need, that you're not going up the rough side of the mountain when there's a set of stairs. So, thank you.